Welcome to the commentary booth where we watch and you guessed it, commentate on the week that was in movies and TV. I'm your host and play by play commentator, Jamie Apps, and each week I'm joined by a rotating cast of colour commentators to help you find your next viewing treat. This week I'm joined by an impact fee technician who lists their favourite movie as A Nightmare on Elm Street and apparent favourite TV show as Sailor Moon, not Golden Girls. Welcome to the show, Corrina Mabey.
I have a vast variety of favorite shows, animated and non-animated shows, but
Apparently they all involve girl groups.
it's fine, whatever, just girl power and all. It started with the Powerpuff Girls and Sailor Moon, and here we are with the Golden Girls and I don't know, like Sex in the City or
Charmed.
something, even though I don't watch that. Oh yeah, Charmed, Buffy. That's another like really strong female-led cast.
Have you watched Yellow Jackets?
I haven't. You keep telling me to watch that, and I have not watched that.
I
But,
feel like
like,
that's a very you show.
I feel like everybody keeps telling me that, and I just have not pulled the trigger on that. I think it's because only season 1 is available on Netflix, and I don't wanna,
Oh yeah,
like
there has to be Peacock or something.
yeah, and I don't feel like paying for it, so I'm just kinda like, do I wanna commit?"
Season one's the best season though.
Okay,
So
well, that's
seen it.
promising then. I don't know anything about it. I just everybody keeps telling me it's a me show, so I'm like, "Okay, well, when I get done watching everything else in the world, I'll get right on
Everything else in the world, including R.I.P.D. and
that."
Red Dawn remake.
You know, when you're tired but you can't really go to sleep yet, you put things on so you don't have to like pay attention to them necessarily. Like you don't have to use a lot of brain power. So that's how I got down the RAPD rabbit hole, which was not a good option. And then I picked out Red Dawn because I didn't know any.
We're not in Kansas anymore.
Yeah, yeah, pretty much. And then yeah, I thought Red Dawn was going to be a zombie movie because we were on a zombie kick. And it sounded like something of zombies. I was way off. And I don't even like those kind of movies. Like that is not my cup of tea. But I was already like 45 minutes into it and I was like, well, there's no zombies, but I've already committed to half the movie, so I might as well just finish it now.
Yeah, that's an action war movie, not a zombie movie. Not even close.
I mean, pleasant surprise was that Jeffrey Dean Morgan was in it, which I didn't know. And he was a good saving grace about it.
Are you going to go back and watch the OG now?
I don't know. Should I?
I've heard the original is better than the remake.
I believe that, but now I feel like I'm gonna go down a slew of movies that have to deal with, like, war, which is not my thing generally, but now I feel like I'm missing out on certain things. Like, I've never seen Dunkirk, and apparently that's a really good movie, and, like, I've never seen Hurt Locker or anything like that, so yeah, there's a lot of movies that apparently I've missed out on. American Sniper, another one, like, they're just not my cup of tea generally.
It's a Mark Wahlberg movie. You like a Mark Wahlberg movie?
Oh my god, you and fucking your obsession with Mark Wahlberg when it comes to my family. Jesus Christ.
Mark's pretty cool.
Fucking hell. Anyway, zombie
Yeah,
movie.
get Wahlburgers and then come back and watch American Sniper.
I'm
And then we'll watch Warfare and then we'll be good.
Didn't I watch Warfare?
No, you did not watch Warfare.
No. What's that other one that I
I watched
watched?
Warfare. I went to the movies and watched Warfare. You did
Isn't
not.
wait, what's that one about the camera crew or the journalists?
That's Civil War.
Civil War. Okay. See,
Same director, different movie.
yeah, well see, I'm not completely out of it. It's just that those are not like they don't keep my attention because, I'm fucking weird apparently, but hey, whatever. Turn a new leaf. Come on, 2025. We're halfway through. Let's see what else we can do.
Mhm. So this week, since Karina was on a zombie kick, we begin our frightening flashback rewatch of the 28 days later, 28 weeks later, 28 years later franchise. The 28 franchise is what
It's
I call them.
28. Yeah, and you get to host this Frightening Flashback, not me, because I hate this movie.
So yeah, we're beginning the journey with 28 days later, ahead of the release of 28 years later at the end of June. In 28 days later, we are set 28 days after an outbreak of a deadly virus hits London, which infects everyone and turns them into rage-fueled killers, aka kinda zombies, but not zombies. And the survivors try to cope with their losses and find sanctuary. starring pretty stacked cast, really, when you think about it these days, looking back at when the movie released, not so much.
Mhm.
Cillian Murphy as Jim, Naomi Harris as Selena, Brendan Gleeson as Frank, Megan Burns as Hannah, Frank's daughter, Christopher Eccleston as Major Henry West, who would later go on to be the Doctor in Doctor Who.
I've also never watched Doctor Who.
Jesus Christ.
I'm on a roll today, folks.
You mentioned Alex Garland,
Mhm.
the creator of Civil War and Warfare.
Yep.
He was the writer for 28 Days Later, and the film was directed by Danny Boyle. Why do you hate this movie? What is wrong with you?
It's just not good. I don't get it. I had this conversation with one of my coworkers who is on the very same page as I am. They're just better zombie movies. And I just don't like, I don't know. I think it shows its age probably, but I don't know, like,
Do you want to know why it shows its age?
because it's from the 90s, late 90s or early
Was it?
2000s.
It was an independent film. They made
Oh,
this on an $8 million budget using just standard video cameras you can buy from the store.
okay. Well, whatever. I still don't like it. It's whatever. I think it's the concept of it was dumb. That's all.
Is it dumb though when you look at what happened in 2020 in the world?
Okay, it is dumb in the fact that they're just basing this off of, oh yeah, the monkeys had rage in them and then bit people and then they turned into like rage-filled people.
No, the monkeys have a virus in them that is man-made.
By because
Mm,
mm,
2020.
yeah, but none of us turned into zombies that I know of. So
A lot of people died though.
that is very true, whether people want to believe that or not.
Also, this
Um,
movie's from 2003, not the 90s.
okay, I said early 2000s or late 90s, whatever. I don't know. I feel like when this movie came out, I think Resident Evil also came out around the same time, and that caught my attention more. The movie, not the game.
You reckon this movie's bad?
The first Resident Evil, don't start with me, motherfucker. I will go to war for that movie. I will die on this fucking hill. Mila Jovovich is like the best female, like a savior anybody could ask for. Get fucked. I will fight you. Like I said, going on down the road, the later ones aren't so great. But the first two, those are my jam. You can get fucked. I don't care.
Hmm.
Yeah, I just don't. I don't know. I don't get it. The only thing I can understand about this movie, and I told you I was going to spin it real well. The only way I got through this movie is that I realized towards the end of it, it's a love story.
Yep, yep. And then the sequel's a family drama.
Yes, thank you. I'm glad you understand this. I'm glad you understand that he needs to save her. And, he realizes how much he's fallen in love with somebody towards the end of the movie, and the father-daughter dynamic that's in there, that's really heartfelt and loveful. And then when you get to the sequel, it's like, oh, look, family drama, and they have to cope with things with their family. So see, it's a wholesome movie. That's the only thing that it's got going for it, is that the first one's a love story. You're welcome.
Yeah, you're terrible.
It's fine. I knew I was going to spin it somehow to make it somewhat tolerable. Why do you love this movie so much, Jamie?
Yeah, the thing I love about this movie is that it is so real. Like it is so based and inspired by actual events. Like all of the opening news footage of like the violent riots and uprisings is like recreations of actual news footage from like Somalia and the Middle East and things like that. The viral outbreak is kind of particularly eerie post COVID, like the empty London streets. We literally saw that in 2020,
Yeah.
empty London streets, and like the rage virus being sort of man made in this nature versus nurture thing to create this virus for the movie. They took inspiration from like the Ebola outbreaks and things like that and like twisted them a little bit. So it's like really cool that Garland and Boyle were very specific in researching current events at the time of 2003
Mhm.
to make a story that was believable. It wasn't just like, oh, all of a sudden the dead people started climbing out of the ground, like in
Evil Dead,
Shaun of the Dead.
Shaun
Shaun
of
of
the
the Dead.
Dead. Oh, yeah, there's that too.
Dead people start like coming up and attacking everything. Whereas this one, it's like this virus was specifically made clearly as like some sort of bioweapon,
Yep.
and then it got out because animal activists were like, "No, you can't do that to animals."
We love
And
PETA.
even the scientist is like, "Don't open that cage. Do not open that
Yeah.
cage."
But we have to
And they
save
don't
the
listen.
animals. You gotta save the animals, you know? It's just animal testing's not good, even when they're infected with things that are deadly. I don't know. This movie's so dark and hard to watch. I also my other problem that I have is this film is um or this movie's kind of shot not exactly in found footage esque, but it's very similar in the shakiness of the camera and stuff. And I get it, the budget was, the way it was, and it was independent, so it makes sense that it's not like a smooth film necessarily. It's very like rocky and shit like that, and that also fucks with my head. Like I can't wrap my head around them. They mess with my head in the way that they move and shit, and it just annoys me.
Yeah, I think that is all down to the like I said, $8 million budget
Yeah.
total
Hmm.
for this movie. So, like, shot on like the high end consumer level video cameras that you could just go into the store and buy
Yeah.
because they wanted to be like super mobile because they didn't really have the budget to be like, hey, can we shut down half of London for like 3 days?
Yeah.
So what they would do, they would get out super early in the mornings and like get permission to be like, we're gonna close this street for like you've got 2 hours.
Yeah.
So they would close sections of roads for a few hours to film that part. Later in the movie, when they're driving down the
Hmm.
motorway was technically still open, but what they did is like police would like slow traffic in
That
both
makes sense.
directions so that it would like give them a nice gap
Yeah.
so they could film that bit and then continue on from there.
Sure.
The tunnel sequence is filmed in a new tunnel, like newly built tunnel that hadn't opened yet. So
Okay,
it's
that's
all like
smart.
actual places in London that were kind of set up, ready to go.
They got lucky.
The part where the bus is overturned, they got permission to overturn the bus. Wasn't supposed to be in front of 10 Downing Street, but they just went super early and did it anyway.
Oh boy. Look at you.
Yeah.
Good for them.
And yeah, I think that's what contributes to like the style of this movie kind of being almost found footage, but not quite. But
Yeah.
then it also works too because it does give you that sense of like chaos and like, oh, what the heck is going to happen next? Like we don't know.
Yeah.
Everything could just turn to shit in 2 seconds, which is kind of what you look back at COVID. It's kind of how it felt. It was just like,
Yeah.
oh, what the fuck's going to happen tomorrow?
I also when I was rewatching this, I realized I didn't remember anything about the second half of this movie. I only remembered like the first half of it when like they get to their destination that they're looking to get to, like their
Ah, yeah, yep.
the barricade that they're looking to get to. That's the only part of this movie that I actually remembered from originally watching it. And then when I went back and rewatched it for this, I go, wait a second, there's more? Why don't I remember any of the rest of this shit? Like, at all, completely
It is
blank.
it is a kind of weird like narrative structure where it's built towards like initial survival of those
Mhm.
first 28 days.
Yeah.
And then it's kind of like, okay, this is the end point, the hope of a sanctuary, like
Mhm. Safe space, safe
army
zone kinda thing.
installation that's like, yeah, we can get there, like a refugee camp type thing.
Mhm.
But then it kind of tricks you and it's like, oh no, this isn't actually a good place to be.
Yeah, and I
Which
just
I like that twist of like it's not super predictable of signposting where we want to get to, and
mhm.
once we get there, that's
Yeah, it's not like a safe haven. But yeah, I could not for the life of me remember any of that part of the like the last half of this movie. I was like, when did all of this happen? Where was I? Like, and I think maybe that's why originally when I was rewatching this, I rolled my eyes so hard because I was like, this movie's so pointless. Like I hate this movie, and I that's why I thought in my head it was so pointless is because there was no ending to it in my head, and it's because I didn't I didn't remember the last part of it. So, I'm
Mhm.
glad I did. I'm glad I rewatched it, but it didn't change my opinion that it's not the best thing in the market.
Yeah, it's the ending part where the like real sinister stuff starts to happen. It proves
Yeah.
that like again, it's not really the monsters that are the biggest issue. It's humans.
Yeah. It's just the mankind and human race and entitlement
and very like male. Uh,
dominance.
yeah, the very sort of alpha male. Like, oh,
It's a very
women are only good
sexist,
for
yeah.
breeding.
It's a very sexist narrative, essentially. Like your women are only
Oh
good for two
Jesus,
things.
yeah, these army blokes are pretty messed up.
Yeah.
What did you think about them sort of alluding to the outbreak being more global than just Britain? Like they talk about, oh, there's been sightings of infected in Spain and Paris, but there's nothing like really definitive. And then when we do get to that sanctuary safe haven, the soldiers talk about their kind of conspiracy theory is that Britain has just been quarantined and the rest of the world's fine. They're just leaving us here to all die.
Mhm. It's an interesting concept because you don't really know at that point because there is nothing that's real proof that it's shown that it's actually anywhere else. So you really do kind of get that sense of maybe they are right. Maybe it's not a complete conspiracy. Like maybe the news is just giving you like literal fake news at this point. Maybe the broadcasts are just to keep people from panicking and stuff like that. Like over panicking. And if everybody thinks that the whole world is fucked up, then they won't, be so freaked. But I don't know. It's really strange. The pacing in this movie is kind of weird for me too. Like it's kind of like it goes really fast in some points and then really slow in some points. So I feel like we're not really able to see a whole lot of, other people aside from like the couple survivors that the main film revolves around. So you don't get that connection with anybody who could be from other places that have like sanctuary in the UK thinking that maybe they were told the same thing like, Paris is like the only place that's infected.
Everywhere is fucked, so just stay where you are, basically.
Yeah, so it's kind of different. It's weird, and you really don't know what to believe at that point.
Yeah. I liked that it kind of alludes to it being global, but then like doesn't give you anything definitive. And then a lot of those are answered in the 28 weeks later film, but we
Hmm.
won't sort of spoil that until next week when we discuss that movie. But yeah,
Yes.
very interesting sort of dynamic of is this a global thing? And that also comes back to the like Garland and Boyle creating the rage virus, basing it on Ebola. They also looked at anthrax and bioterrorism scares in London and how people reacted to those,
Hmm.
and the spread of mad cow disease in Britain as well, of how mad cow and foot and mouth kind of really freaked the world out, and everyone was like, "Fuck England, you guys are on your own."
Yeah, and I think additionally, maybe the reason why I don't resonate with this film as much as you might is because over here in the US, like those kinds of things for the most part are not like as looked at and analyzed on like our media outlets and things like that. Like if it doesn't exactly affect us, like I've noticed that it just doesn't make as much.
Your news is like, who cares?
Yeah, like if we're not directly affected by it, then they're like they mention it briefly and then that's it. So we didn't necessarily emphasize the Ebola outbreak and mad cow disease as much as like other places of the world would have done that. Like, West Nile was something that like got really blown up over here just because of mosquitoes and bullshit like that. But other things that have happened in other countries and especially over in Europe and stuff like that in the UK just doesn't get like it doesn't get publicized over here enough, especially back when this movie was made. It was kind of just like, eh, this is happening. Okay, go back to normal.
I mean, even I remember like that England having the big mad cow and foot in mouth outbreaks, and everyone's being like, "That's pretty fucked up." Like they got to kill all their cattle because they're all fucked up.
Yeah, I remember there being like issues with like getting hamburger and stuff like that, but like I think it was just so long ago that like a lot of people just don't really recall a lot of that. The biggest thing I think that the most recent thing was like the listeria outbreak and the fucking lettuce and shit. That was the big thing
Mhm.
that like affected us. But yeah, so it's interesting and I think maybe that's why this movie and I get it because this is an independent like UK movie. So I feel like this had a better reception with that like concept over with y'all because it's of the exposure to those kinds of things, like those
Yeah.
kinds of outbreaks and articles.
One of the other things I wanted to talk about was There's a very naked Cillian Murphy in the opening couple of shots of this
Yep.
in the hospital. Oh, that
I
is as a Cillian Murphy wiener.
It is, and you know what's funny is that image is actually burned in my head, whether I wanted it to be or not. From the very first time I ever saw this movie ages and ages ago, I remember specifically naked man in a hospital bed, just completely full free ball in it, and just running around with his cheeks hanging out. And I'm like, that's a naked man.
Hmm.
And he was very
And
like
yeah,
it was like a skinny naked man too. There was like nothing to him.
it's 28 days. He hasn't really been fed, so it makes
Yeah.
sense. But yeah, it is interesting now looking back at it and being like, that's Cillian Murphy. That's like an Oscar winner. What the hell?
It is, and it's weird because I've never watched Peaky Blinders, so I don't really know if he ever gets in the nude in that show or not. But I feel like he is one of those actors that does not have like a lot of nude sequences. So for this to be one of his like first big breaks, as far as like a film is concerned, is very interesting because now, like you said, looking at him as like an Oscar winner, like he didn't even really drop his drawers in Oppenheimer or anything. So it's just funny to look back
I
at it.
pretty full on sex scene in Oppenheimer.
Yeah, but you don't see his junk like you do on this. This is just like,
Yeah,
look at me.
yeah. And that scene was apparently filmed in a closed set at his request. So it was literally just like him, the camera guy, and the directors. So
Yeah,
makes
there
sense.
you go. That makes more sense as to why we probably have not seen a whole lot of him in the birthday suit on screen.
Yep. There is talk, like I think Garland has said that he or Boyle have said that he is going to return. It won't be in this 28 years later that's coming up this year. It'll be the sequel and
To that.
potentially the third one of the new trilogy. So
Yeah, I read that as well yesterday actually when I was looking into it. Um
I'll be interested to see if they bring him back into that.
yeah, it'll be interesting to see if he pulls through. He's executive producer on the new one, I think, if I read that correctly or something. So,
Makes sense.
yeah, that makes sense. So I'm interested to see him return to the franchise if that is in fact going to happen and that comes to fruition.
Because there was like the debate when the first trailer came out for 28 years later, where you see that infected that looks very much like him as a zombie, but it's like
Hmm.
I don't think it is him. It's just coincidentally looks very similar. So
Yeah, it
it
could
could
be
be him.
anybody.
I don't think it is. It'll be interesting to see how they bring him in and whether that is actually him or not.
Hmm.
Are you a trading card collector or a fan of Australian pro wrestling? If so, you're not going to want to miss out on the limited edition Australian wrestling cards. Each set includes 50 packs of 10 cards, including some of the country's top wrestling talents like Robbie Eagles, Shane Haste, Madison Eagles, Hartley Jackson, and they have Shaza McKenzie listed, although she is not a favorite. The velocities, and a lot more. There's wrestlers, referees, announcers, commentators that are featured, giving you a full appreciation of the Australian independent scene. The cards sold out a lot faster because cards are hot right now, as I'm sure Jeremy Lambert will tell you. But you can order your Australian wrestling cards now at Pario Magazine. That's PARIO magazine.com.au/AUS WRES cards. Follow Australian Wrestling Cards on social media at AusResCards for updates. Join the hundreds of fans who have already discovered the excitement of Australian wrestling cards.
One thing I also did like about this is how they kind of use sort of gameplay tropes too of like environmental storytelling to convey a lot of the story and the context for what happened in the outbreak, because obviously there's no news, there's no like people to him to get like explained like while you were in a coma for the last month,
Yeah, just
here's all the shit that went down. As
right.
he's like walking through an eerily empty London, he's like seeing newspapers and missing persons posters, which were apparently quite controversial. And then there's like a curfew sign and stuff like that where he's getting sort of clued into what's happened in that last month as the viewer is, in the same way of like, oh, there's this thing, there's that thing, and like you kind of put the pieces together yourself, not like when we see movies today, they really spell everything out for you.
Yes, A, B, C. Like scene one, scene two. Yeah. Yeah, this one was definitely like a jigsaw puzzle. And it's almost like you're regaining like Cillian Murphy's character, Jim, it's almost like he is regaining like his memories and stuff like that. And you know, you see him just coming back to reality from being in a coma as the viewer. So it's like you're just going on this journey with him and trying to figure it out alongside of him versus like everything being blatant in your face. Which I like.
Mhm.
Do enjoy that.
And yeah, those missing persons posters were apparently quite controversial because during filming of this is when 9/11 happened.
Oh, good.
So they were filming this as that was happening, and then when the movie came out, everyone was like, "Those missing persons posters are very like similar to the missing persons posters from New York." And so it's like, we didn't mean that. We just did that, and then that shit happened. So
Yeah, that's rough. That's really rough to try and market this and have that all happen at the same time.
yep, not great timing for them with
No.
that to happen during filming, but I guess at least they weren't filming in America. They were filming in the UK, so they could just kind of continue.
Yeah, that's very, very true.
There were a couple of funny moments in this too, when as Jim's like going through the city and he ends up in the church that's filled with corpses, and then suddenly a couple of the infected pop up. I laughed hard when he was fighting the infected priest and just beats him off with a bag of drinks that he collected on the way.
Yep. Yep. Death by Pepsi.
Bag full of cans of drink, like, get off me.
Yeah, that was really funny. That whole concept of that, like you can see the people went to the church to probably try and like either repent,
Seek refuge.
yeah, seek refuge or repent. So they thought that they weren't going to get affected if they were like in a house of God or something like that, probably.
And then yeah, one infected gets in and it just spreads like wildfire, and
Yeah,
then they're all screwed.
yeah, but
The other funny moment was the lion versus giraffe joke. I feel like you would have really laughed at that one.
probably I don't remember it.
So one of the characters tells the joke of a man walks into a bar with a giraffe. They both get pissed. The
Hmm.
giraffe falls over. The man goes to leave, and the bartender says, "Oi, you can't leave that lion there." And the man says, "No, it's not a lion. It's a giraffe."
Yes, I do remember that. I might have laughed a little bit at that. That is kind of a.
I thought you would have found that one quite funny.
But yeah, I don't appreciate you calling me out on the bad jokes because I personally think I have great jokes. Okay, most of the time.
Okay.
Okay, whatever. Yes, that was a dad joke.
I did like the couple of like rare funny moments in an otherwise very dour, sad film. Like pretty much
Yeah,
everyone's dead.
I think it's because you have to find a little bit of humor, I guess, in times of destruction, probably just to maintain sanity. What little bit of it you might have.
And I like the moment where we find out like how quickly this infection like takes hold of people too. When they, so Jim has been picked up by these two people like Mark and Selena. Like they found him and they're like, "All right, stick with us. We'll keep you alive."
Yep.
But he wants to go and see and make sure his parents are okay. Spoiler alert: they are not. They have committed suicide, which is really rough.
Probably smarter for them. I get it. If I were in that situation, in that predicament, I would probably want to go out that way instead of turning into a brainless
Killing machine.
yeah, just yeah, I would and on obviously we see that they are able to starve to death. We find them like dead, infected here and there because they can't
Mhm.
find food. So I would rather just off myself than starve to death as a brainless thing.
So yeah, then while they're held up in Jim's parents' house, an infected bursts through the window, bites Mark, and Selena doesn't hesitate to kill him because we find out that the infection can take hold in 10 to 20 seconds. And she's like,
Yeah.
"Oh, fuck this, man, you're dead."
Yeah, she
Oh,
literally didn't even give it a second thought. It was just like, oh, he got bit. Bye. It's
yep.
crazy. Like, and you can tell, I feel like her character, like her backstory's got to be pretty rough. And you can tell she's seen some shit because she just doesn't even think twice about it. She goes, if you get bit, I'm not dealing with you. I'll kill you. And I'm not going to think twice about it. If you fall behind, I'm not going to fall behind with you. You're on your own kind of moment.
So then it's just Jim and Selena. They continue on their journey. They find the high-rise unit block where Frank and Hannah have been holding up since the outbreak. They've barricaded themselves in with a bunch of trolleys at the bottom of the stairwell. They've been trying to collect rainwater from the roof using the tarp technique,
Yeah.
which was never going to work because you need soil underneath that. You can't just have concrete because you need the moisture to come out of the ground to rise up as condensation
Yeah.
to make liquid. So
To know.
he's like, "I can't get it to work." It's like, yeah, that's why, because
Yeah.
there's no soil underneath.
It's just cement.
But also, it hasn't rained in Britain for over 10 days, which is quite unusual.
Yeah, and his character even says that. Imagine that, like no rain in Britain. Like it always rains.
And that's where we get this moment of hope with the recording that's on loop saying that there's this army base, come here, we can sort of keep everyone alive. And they begin their journey in Frank's taxi. What did you think of sort of the Frank and Hannah couple, or father-daughter
Duo.
duo that we find?
I think it's interesting. I'm really impressed that they survived that long. It makes you wonder, like, what they all had to go through to manage to survive that. Like, if there were other people that were originally with them
In the
and then
building.
they just kind of died as well. Who knows? But I do like that they seem, even though it's like a shit situation, they seem very like optimistic and just, oh, hey, really welcoming versus like, oh, no, fuck off. Like, we're going to do our own thing because they realize that, it's better to work as a group than try to do things individually.
I think it also comes down to the fact that, like, he realized that we need help at this point. Like, we don't have water. We are running out of food. Like, we can't really go and search for food because it's dangerous as hell out there.
Yeah. And
So,
it's
like,
just,
I think that's why they start, like, even putting the Christmas lights on to signal that, like, we're here, because I don't
yeah.
know if you'd want to do.
Yeah, it was a risky because, we see that they have to like pretty much everything is in darkness for the most part, like everywhere, because any sign of life or anything like that just like draws the infected people. So it's a risk move. But I mean, they have the trolleys and he's got some really good riot gear that he acquired. So kudos to him.
But also, like, I think, like, signaling, like, that they're lucky that it was two nice people that found them, not
Yeah.
a group of assholes like the army.
Yeah. Yep. 100%. His taxi's super dope. He drives like you do.
I don't drive like that. I don't four-wheel drive over cars.
I'm sure if you had four-wheel drive in your fucking car, you would be driving over cars. You drive like a maniac.
No.
Hmm.
What did you think of the motorway tunnel scene and the swarm of rats running from the infected horde?
That was interesting because usually, you see like rats, like whenever I see a scene like that, I think of Indiana Jones. When I think
Mhm.
it's the third one when they're in the like the underground parts and they're in the sewer slash like where all the coffins are and shit and all the rats come flying down. I just think of that and I'm like, oh yeah, because rats don't like water or fire or anything like that, and then they're running away from things that can actually harm them. Like I feel like they just have like a sixth sense, like all animals have a sixth sense anyway. So yeah, that was an interesting thing to see. And the fact that they actually did take that as a, oh shit, we probably should work a little bit harder because something's happening.
Yeah. Something's coming. We need to move.
Yeah.
So yeah, they finally managed to fix that flat tire that they got from canyon narrowing over the blockade of cars, and then they find a supermarket, and they go, "Oh shit, we should probably go and try and scavenge some food." I did love the, like, difference between what each person grabbed. So the girls go and get chocolate,
Yeah.
and Frank's like, "Yep, I'm getting this high-end expensive whiskey."
Yeah. And apples that are like treated.
Yeah,
Like
radiated
really
apples.
apples. I like how you specify that. No lie though, in the supermarket scene, I really was expecting something like absolutely awful to happen because it's just so wide open and everything is so eerily quiet. It's almost too good to be true that nothing happened in that entire sequence.
And it hasn't been leaked clean already as well.
Yeah, so it's really interesting to see that they almost have a moment of normalcy while they're in that supermarket.
Like, weird oasis in the middle
Hmm.
of their journey.
Yeah.
Continue on, they have to stop for fuel and, like, siphon some fuel out of a petrol tanker. And while there, Jim goes into the servo and finds a young infected kid to talk in the first two films. Because as he's about to be murdered by Jim, the kid says, "I hate you."
Yeah, it's just really weird, like, it's not, like, super audible, but it is. It's so
Mhm.
strange, he just sounds very weird, and I never noticed
Which
that
makes me
none of
think
them
he was, like,
speak.
only just, like, turned, so he hasn't, like, fully gone wild yet. So, like, he's still got some semblance of his childlike self, but then the rage is taking over. So like he's saying "I hate you" when like a
Mhm.
kid wouldn't say it.
Yeah, it is interesting. I never even like put two and two together, but yeah, you're right because none of them other infected like talk.
All the others just like scream and yell and like run.
Yeah,
Like
interesting.
they're literal like zombie monsters at that point, whereas he's the one that's like, "I hate you." It's like,
Yeah.
okay,
Okie dokie.
stomp, curb stomp.
Yeah. Oof. Also, honestly, like he didn't need to go in that fucking supermarket. Like he could have left well enough
No,
alone. There was no reason
you
for it.
just scavenged so much food from the supermarket that you couldn't even close all the doors on the goddamn taxi.
Yeah, you had bags hanging out of the trunk
Food
and
is okay.
everything. Mm-hmm.
After that, they end up getting to the blockade, which is what they've been searching for. We see like Liverpool burning in the background, which is not a great sign when one of the major cities in the UK is totally on fire.
Yeah, it's a little concerning.
Which makes me think like that's kind of leaning into sort of what we see in the second film, the like they start firebombing shit. Like
Mm-hmm.
the army that is still around is just like, fuck this, burn the whole city.
Yeah, like we don't have any other choice. Let's just take care of it in the only way we know how, which is blowing shit up.
And then while they're Frank's wandering around and a drop of blood falls in his eye
Ugh.
and immediately infects him. Like it's that quick of how easy it is to didn't get bitten, didn't get anything else. It was just like pure bad luck that it fell in his eyeball and not on his cheek.
Yeah. And it's really rough because you can see like he already knows what's going to happen. Like he says bye to his daughter, tells her he loves her. Like that
And
was
stay
really
away. Yeah,
hard.
like don't come near me.
Yeah, it's so hard to like watch that because you just see them. And honestly, that sequence, like the acting in it is phenomenal because they you really feel for both of them in that scene.
I thought the daughter sucked in that scene.
Okay, well, you can feel his emotion. She just kind of seemed
I thought he was
confused,
good.
but she's also
Yeah, I
super
thought
young.
she
She
was
looked really
good.
confused, like what's going on? Like I don't understand it. I think she's kind of supposed to be just like in shock, but
Yeah. And then right before he can like fully turn, pop up,
yeah,
the soldiers take him out. And they talk about like, oh, this is the new normal. Like people kill people now.
yeah, they don't even bat an eye, and you know they've seen shit and they're not going to risk anything. Which, I get it.
And yeah, in Karina's mind, movie fades to black here.
Yeah, like that's the end of it. Like in my head, I'm like, all right, that's where the first one ends, and then the second one leaves on a cliffhanger, and you're just wondering what happens, and then that's when the second one happens, and then I didn't remember anything about the second one at all when I went to go rewatch that. So the only thing I remembered was the main character, like the guy that was in it, and that was it.
Yeah. I feel like this could have been like a cool ending too. Yeah, like just pop pop.
Mm-hmm.
And then like the soldiers come out and you're like, oh, they're safe. But
Yeah.
that's also like a sort of predictable ending of like, okay, cool. They made it to the soldiers and now they're fine. But we sort of continue on and we find out that these soldiers have made a base in an abandoned mansion and
Yeah.
they have like, they even have an infected that they've captured and chained up in the courtyard to research and try to figure out how long it takes for them to starve to death and sort of so they can judge like how long do we have to stay holed up here and before we can like try and venture out more.
Yeah, I think it was at that point when they revealed that they had an infected in the courtyard. That is what threw up a red flag for me. Like very very
Mm-hmm.
first red flag for me was like, okay, you're harboring one of these. And he's one of their guys too. So originally I was like, oh, well, they just don't want to like, they want to give him a proper like goodbye or something like that. Or maybe they think that they can reverse it because it's one of their guys. But when he's just like, oh no, I'm going to find out how long it takes him to starve. I'm like, oh, there's something fishy about this now. I don't know how I feel about these people.
It's after that we are it's revealed that the major has promised his men women because women mean a future for humanity. What did you think of this whole dynamic?
It's disgusting. Just point blank.
Yep.
Like it was just disgusting. Like it gave me the ick. Like with the exception of like that one soldier who was like, what are you doing? Like this isn't right. Who they ended up, spoiler, like killing one of their own guys because he didn't like the way that they were doing things. It just gives you the ick. And you get it like in a sense, it's that same thing when like prisoners first see like a woman or something like that and they've only ever been around men. They're like, rabid dogs or whatever. But at the same time, it's like you're fucking vile.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really gross.
Hmm. Especially because she's only like 15, 16 maybe.
If
supposed
that.
to be. Yeah, if that, and it's just like the way that they talk about them, like they don't even regard the women in like the same aspect as a man. They just like, oh yeah, we're gonna have our way with you, and yeah, it's gonna be great. Like, bleh,
Yep.
cringe.
I did read that scene where it is revealed that they have promised the soldiers women. It was written by Cillian Murphy, Christopher Eccleston, and Alex Garland the night before it was shot. So they had like a totally different scene scripted and ready to go, but no one was happy with how it came out,
Ooh.
particularly like Murphy and Eccleston.
Mm-hmm.
So they ended up rewriting it and trying again, and this is what they came up with, which I think is probably, I don't know what the original scene was, but this is a very powerful scene, and it really shifts the tone and makes the soldiers the real bad guys in this movie, not so much the infected.
Right.
The
Yeah.
infected are just a problem you have to deal with. Like
It's a
you
bystander.
can't really change that, but these soldiers, they are evil. We need to get away from them as quickly as possible.
Yeah. As much as I hate this, I think the one of the most redeeming qualities of this particular sequence and like this whole environment that they're shoved into is that Selena's character, she understands what's happening and she doesn't want the girl to like remember anything essentially. So I appreciate her just taking over that motherly instinct and being like, here, pop these fucking pills. You're not going to remember anything.
Take some Valium.
Yeah, like just it's gonna make you completely numb. And then the entire time everything's going on, she's just like, "What's happening? I'm feeling great." And so I love that. I love when Cillian Murphy like is back with the like reunited, and he's just like, "Are you fucking high?"
Yeah. Yeah, she is. A lot.
Yes, I am. So that was just one of those like comedic relief things. But like, like I said, I appreciate that sequence where it's not completely like vile if she's trying to make the best of a really shit situation, at least for the girl.
And yeah, I do like that once Jim realizes, okay, we cannot be here. We need to get away from these guys. He starts like setting off and using the tripwires and the sirens to aid the escape and kind of attract the infected to the mansion.
Yeah.
And then this is where the movie gets like mega violent.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely
The
insane.
we see the rage monsters like early on, like yeah, they bite that Mark guy. It's fine. It's like gross, but it's not overly violent. But
Mm-hmm.
then in this part, we see Jim like dig his thumbs into a soldier's eyeballs. And it's like that's probably the most visceral and brutal scene in the movie.
So gross. And I was not prepared for that. And then when we got to the second movie, I realized that this is a growing trend with shoving fingers in eyeballs because it happens quite frequently now, it seems.
I wonder if there's going to be a fingers in eyeballs scene in
Oh
28 years
man.
later.
And, if they keep with that trend,
You've got to continue the trend now.
you
They've
do
done it in 2
that's
movies.
that's like the tying of everything together. That's how you
It's the
know it's all
hallmark.
the same.
And then the major ends up shooting Jim as they like make their escape, which he was originally meant to die from. So Jim was
Interesting.
meant to die in this movie, but it was rewritten and reshot because the ending, as it was, where Jim died, was like tested really poorly, and people were like, "Can't kill the main character," so they ended up redoing it, and now he ultimately survives. We jump another 28 days after the events of this movie to the end, and we see that Jim, Selena, and Hannah are now surviving on a remote farm. Jim has been passed out for 28 days again. Like,
Yeah,
this poor
it's his
guy just
friend.
misses months of his life.
Oh, and he's naked again. He just doesn't show his bits the second time around.
Mhm.
It's like deja vu.
We see that they've made this like giant hello sign out of sheets and whatever fabric they have
Yeah.
so that when the plane flies over, they can be like, help, hello, we're here.
Yeah.
And that's where we end it. Like this kind of ambiguous ending instead of a really definitive, like, oh, Jim's dead.
Yeah. It's definitely like it's so open-ended, like could be left for anything. So it was really interesting to see how they left that off. I think they probably did it because maybe I don't know if the sequel was like actually originally planned or if it was one of those we'll see how this goes and if it does well we'll make a sequel. But yeah, it could have been, anything. And even with the way this ends, I don't feel like it necessarily like the second film feels almost like a separate movie from the first movie for me.
Oh yeah, it is.
You
Like
know,
it doesn't have any of
completely
the same like there's no characters tie in. It's just
no. So it's very
a
interesting that
new part of the story.
it's interesting that they deemed it to be almost like a trilogy or like a I don't know, like a sequel to the original, but even though it like takes place like very differently and everything's different, it's just kind of a weird way because nothing ties in with it except for the virus. So that's weird.
Given that the original ending had Jim dying, I don't know if they intended to do more.
Yeah.
But then when that ending tested poorly and they filmed this one and did like this kind of ambiguous ending,
Hmm.
I guess they doing that left them the potential to continue this on.
Yeah.
When they did the second one 28 weeks later, there was intentions to do 28 months later,
Hmm.
but that falling through because I don't have the facts for 28 weeks later, but I don't know how well it did compared to like
Yeah.
budget wise. Whereas this one cost them 8 million, made $85.7 million. So obviously the studio was like, do more.
That's pretty
So then
big.
they came back 28 weeks later, and then they were intending to do 28 months later, and it just kind of fell through.
I'm wondering if this, like, I'm sure we'll review it when we go to do our flashback of 28 weeks, but I'm presuming that that one had a bigger budget because there were more known actors in it. There's a,
I don't know if
I don't know if
Jeremy
they were,
Renner was super well known at the time.
no, but what's his name? Uh, fuck, the main character. God, his name just escaped me. I was talking about him earlier with my mom. Robert Carlyle, that's his
Mhm.
name. Yeah, he's pretty well known, I feel.
Hmm. Like the new one had like 28 weeks later had Jeremy Renner.
Wasn't Idris Elba in that too? Wasn't he
Idris
the major?
Elba's in there as well.
Yeah. I was like,
Like
there's no fucking
it did have some
way.
big names, but I don't know if they were like big names
Then
then,
maybe, I don't
which is
know.
like Cillian Murphy, like kind of a nobody at this point,
Yeah.
but now
I feel
major
like
star.
the sets in the second one are definitely a little bit bigger and there's more to it, and we'll get more into that. But the budget I think might have been a little bit bigger, and I don't know if they actually made back their budget as well as they did on this one. So I would explain it. Explain why it took so long to make this 28 years later, and it'll be interesting to see how that progresses since I did read that 28 years and the sequel to 28 years was filmed back to back
Yeah,
simultaneously. So that's going to be interesting. They were just like, oh,
yeah.
we're going to ride this train. We already know it's going to be great. So we're already going to just do a second one.
So yeah, overall, like pretty enjoyable film. It ended up winning Best Horror Film at the Saturn Awards in 2003. So it is looked on quite favorably for everyone except Karina.
It's not true. There's a lot of people I know that do not like this film. I think this is one of those cult classic movies almost that, you know, like our
It's either
generation looks.
or hate it. Like there's not a lot of in betweens.
Yeah. Yeah, it's got a very like specific fan base to it, and I know that there's a ton of people that are really excited about it, and then there's a ton of people who are like or about the new one. But there's also a ton of people that I've come across that they're like, I don't even fucking know what this is about. And I'm like, I know what the films were about because I was there when they came out, but they were nothing.
A couple of like trivia fun facts for the double decker bus overturned scene where Jim walks past it. The film crew placed the bus on its side and removed it when the shooting was finished or within 20 minutes.
That's impressive.
So they pumped that out because obviously they couldn't shut that street down for very long. So they had to
Yeah.
get in, topple a bus, have Jim walk past, pick the bus up, get out of there.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive, honestly. But I mean, kudos to them because they had such a limited space to film in. So I think they did a really good job in that sense.
Particularly London, which is like a super busy town, to like get those
Yeah.
totally empty streets. Like most of the time they had 45 minutes.
Mm-hmm. It's crazy.
So that's pretty. And then the last note I had was at a certain point, it was announced that to the crew that the production had run out of money. So they kind of just stopped filming without a closing sequence having been shot.
Oh, good.
And then after several sort of pitches for a new ending, which, like we said, that original ending was Jim being shot and it not testing well, the studio ended up granting them a little bit more funding to then go and shoot the scene that we saw at the farm, which makes sense of why it's kind of totally detached from the rest of the movie.
Yeah. They did a really good job of like transitioning into that final ending where they were just like 28 days later again. Because when everything ends, like I really, again, that was a very long fade to black, like moment on that when I thought it was going to be over. And then they were like 28 days later in the corner. I'm like, oh, we're not done.
So in terms of an overall rating for 28 Days Later, what would you give this film out of 5?
This movie is a 3 for me. It's not like bottom of the barrel trash, but it's not any of the Evil Dead movies or anything like that. So
Okay, I will grant you that because I gave it a 3 out of 5 as well. Like it is, like we said, it's very much like a cult favorite. Like you either love this or you hate it. There's not a lot of in betweens.
mm-hmm.
I'm probably higher on the 3. You're probably lower on that 3 scale, but yeah, very enjoyable. I think the second one is a better movie.
Yes, I do like the second one
Uh,
better. It actually redeemed the franchise for me when I watched it. So that's a
And
positive.
rewatching both of them has me excited for the new one coming as well. I think that's
Honestly,
going to be very good
then
with the budget they're putting behind it and the marketing push that they're putting behind it. They're obviously quite confident.
yeah, on it, I was already sold on the new one coming out just from the trailer. The trailer is so eerie, and I saw that it had won Trailer of the Year award or something like that already because it was just so creepy.
Mhm.
And I think it's just the whole poem reading in that trailer. Like there is nothing else there except for that poem being read in the background. So it gives it like it's more of like that creepy feel. But again, a lot of even the trailer for 28 Days and 28 Weeks, they don't really have any like dialogue in them. It's mainly just like shots from the movie with just like words.
Yeah, it's kind of like scene setting of like, here's what you can expect. We're not going
Mm-hmm.
to tell you really anything about what it is, but here's the vibe we're going for.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's 28 Days Later. We'll be back next week for 28 Weeks Later, and then the following week for 28 Years Later. Thank you for listening to the commentary booth. If you enjoyed the show, please remember to rate, review, and subscribe on podcast services and YouTube. You can follow Karina on Instagram at Miss Karina Renee, and you can follow me on social media at Jamie Apps Media and at Pario Magazine. The Commentary Booth is a fan-funded production of Jamie Apps Media. You can support the podcast alongside our magazine, Pario Magazine, on Patreon at patreon.com/Jamie Apps Media. The following people supported at the publisher level or higher, and you cannot fathom how incredibly appreciative we are for their support.